In this video, we explore the shocking true story of Tracy Andrews, the woman behind a brutal murder that shocked Britain. Millions of people in Britain watched on TV on December 3rd, 1996, as a young woman with a black eye and stitches above her head sat in front of the cameras with tears running down her face. Her name, Tracy Andrews. She held the hands of her dead fiancé's mother and sister as she talked about a nightmare that happened 2 nights before on a dark country road. Lee Harvey had been killed by an unknown person with staring eyes. Someone killed someone out of anger on the road in England. A huge amount of sympathy was sent out by the people. Police started a huge search for a dark Ford Sierra and the murderous person who was riding in it. Individuals from all over the area came forward to help catch the monster that had killed a young man. However, Tracy's story was very badly flawed, and the plea she made to find the person who killed her fiancé would be the thing that brought her down. As 2 of the witnesses had driven that road that same night, they knew what they were talking about. Before we get into the full story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life crime documentaries that dive deep into the darkest and most unbelievable true stories from around the world. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss when a new case drops. Every story here reveals something new about the hidden side of human nature. And I'd really love to know, which country are you watching from? Drop it down in the comments below. It's always incredible to see how far these stories travel and connect people from every corner of the world who share the same fascination for true crime and justice. Your support truly helps keep these stories alive and remembered. Now, let's get into it. He was born in 1971 in the quiet English county of Worcestershire. His name is Lee Raymond Dean Harvey. He grew up in the West Midlands, which is known for its rolling hills and old market towns. The countryside was full of winding country roads, old pubs with roaring fires, and small towns where everyone knew about each other's lives. Lee Harvey grew up in this very English home with his parents Ray and Maren and his sister Michelle. The family came from a working-class background and lived by the values of their neighborhood. From what everyone said, Lee was a normal young man in Middle England living a normal life. There was nothing unusual about his situation or about him that would set him apart for the unusual fate that lay ahead. Lee got a job as a bus driver when he was young. He drove on the roads he knew well in his home county. Every day, he took people to villages and places he had known since he was a child, passing the same fields and hedges that had defined his whole life. However, court records would later say that he was jobless at the time of his death. Driving had made him very familiar with the roads in Worcestershire, including Cooper's Hill, where he would end his life. Lee Harvey had his whole life ahead of him at age 25. He was young and had a lot of hope. He was going to marry a woman he loved very much. In his dreams, he saw himself making a family and a bright future, not just living in the quiet country. Those hopes and dreams would never come true. He would die on a dark country road in December, far from anyone who could help him. Tracy Margaret Andrews was born and lived near where Lee Harvey did, in the Hereford and Worcester area. Her youth was marked by changes in her family. When she was young, her parents split up, and she grew up with her mother, stepfather, Alan Carter, brothers, and half-siblings. The broken family relationships would change her in ways that she wouldn't realize at the time. Tracy wanted to be famous when she was a teenager, but her simple surroundings seemed to get in the way of her plans. She was a model and sold perfume and makeup, giving the impression that she was sophisticated and beautiful. Tracy Andrews knew early on how important it was to control how other people saw her and how they felt about her. Her personal life, on the other hand, was anything but smooth. They got pregnant when she was 21 years old. Her first boyfriend was Andrew Tilston. The couple's relationship didn't last after they had their daughter Carla. About a year after Carla was born, Tracy moved back in with her mother and tried to start over as a single parent. She finally got a government apartment in Alvechurch, a village just south of Birmingham, and raised her daughter by herself. Growing up as a single mother in a small town with few means was hard, but Tracy didn't give up. She kept up her looks, her goals, and her faith that something better was coming. Tracy's breakup with Andrew Tilston was bad, leaving scars that would become important. He later told the cops that while they were dating, she had once threatened him with a knife. At the time, this seemed like a small thing, but it would become very important in the years to come. It was October 1994 when Lee Harvey met Tracy Andrews. They felt an instant, electric, and all-consuming desire for each other. Lee must have thought Tracy was beautiful, smart, and driven, everything he wanted in a partner. Tracy saw in Lee security, love, and the chance of a settled family life that she had been looking for. Lee moved into Tracy's apartment in Alvechurch in less than 3 months. As the friendship went on, it became more intense, which would come to define it. From the outside, they looked like a pair who were very in love. When they got engaged, Lee became Carla's father figure and became a part of her life. But when they weren't together, the relationship was anything but solid. People who knew the pair said that their relationship was unstable, fueled by jealousy, and sometimes very violent. They broke up a lot, and when they did get back together, it was just as intense as when they were fighting. There was both love and hate, and each fed the other. Arguments broke out over perceived slights, too much attention from other people, and the small complaints that build up in relationships that are already having trouble. Their relationships were tainted by jealousy. Intensity followed by an explosion, and then tearful reunion became the steady beat of their life together. The fighting didn't stop and was scary. There were reports of physical altercations. During one fight, Tracy is said to have bit Lee on the neck, leaving marks that can be seen. She is said to have hit him during a different argument. Everyone around them could feel a storm coming from their relationship. People who knew them well saw the red flags. As the cycle of violence got worse, friends and family watched with growing worry. Lee Harvey was still determined to make the partnership work, though. He cared so much about Tracy Andrews that he couldn't see how dangerous things were. He might have thought things would get better. Maybe he couldn't picture himself living without her. That love, that stubborn failure to give up, even though all the signs told him not to, would cost him everything. Thursday, December 1st, 1996, was just like any other night for Lee and Tracy. There was a bar in Bromsgrove called the Marlbrook Public House, where they could share a drink and get away from the stress of home. Any problems that might have existed between them seemed to have gone away for now. It was early December on a Sunday night, and Christmas was coming up soon. They left just after 10 o'clock. Worcestershire was in deep darkness in December, the kind of darkness that people who live in cities rarely feel. Lee was the driver, and Tracy was in the passenger seat. They were going to their home in Alvechurch. They went along Cooper's Hill, a country road that wound through the woods. Lee knew this road well from his time as a bus driver. People all over the country would be very interested in what happened on that road and do a lot of research on it. The exact order of events, the words that were said, and the exact moment when love turned into murder were all lost with Lee Harvey. One thing, though, can't be argued with. Lee Harvey's car stopped somewhere on Cooper's Hill. There was a fight, and the 25-year-old was dead in a matter of minutes. He had been stabbed more than 30 times, and some reports put the number as high as 37. He had wounds all over his body, on his face, neck, and chest. One of his neck wounds cut off a major blood artery, spraying arterial blood into the air. He died on the cold ground in December, far from anyone who could have helped him or saved him. Tracy Andrews made it through that night with a black eye and cuts above her eyebrow that needed stitches. She also had a story to tell. Tracy says the nightmare started not long after they left Marlbrook. Someone in a dark Ford Sierra pulled up behind them as they drove quickly through the night. The driver seemed determined to scare them by following too closely in the twisting lane and honking their horn and flashing lights. She said that Lee stopped to let the rude driver go by. That's what you should have done. But the Sierra also stopped and didn't go any further. As he got out, a passenger came out. He was a man with wide, angry eyes. There was a fight between Lee and the stranger. Tracy says that the stranger then struck. He repeatedly stabbed Lee while Tracy sat in the passenger seat, frozen with fear and unable to do anything to stop him. After the attack was over, the killer went back to the Sierra and sped off into the night, leaving Lee to die on the side of the road. Tracy shook with shock and grief as she called for help. When help came, Lee Harvey was already dead on the cold pavement and could not be saved. The search for the person who killed the driver in a fit of rage began in Worcestershire and beyond. About 2 days after the murder, Tracy Andrews gave one of the most famous news conferences in British criminal history. It was filmed by TV cameras. The black eye was dark and swollen, there were stitches above her brow, and her face was pale from shock and fatigue. There were Maureen Harvey and Michelle Harvey sitting next to her. They were the guy she said she loves mother and sister. To show how strong family bonds can be in the face of senseless disaster, they held hands and cried together. Tracy's plea was emotional, full of details, and seemed to come from the heart. The attacker's staring eyes were reported by her. For the driver of the Ford Sierra to come forward, she begged. She was sure the driver wasn't at fault. She described violent acts that happened for no reason, and a loving couple who were torn apart by a stranger's crazy anger. The news conference did exactly what it was supposed to do. The story was all over the British news for days. People already really understood what road rage meant. The media paid a lot of attention to aggressive driving and how it could kill people in the 1990s. Anyone who has ever felt scared on the road could picture themselves in Lee Harvey's shoes. Tracy's story fit right into this culture story about how random violence can happen on Britain's highways. The police began a thorough probe. They asked people who might have seen the dark Ford Sierra to come forward. Composite sketches were passed around. Witnesses did call the tip lines and come forward, but what they had to say didn't fit with Tracy's carefully prepared story. It would do nothing but damage it. Detective Inspector Steve Walters was in charge of the case for the police in West Mercia. When the experienced detective first heard Tracy's story, something about it made him uncomfortable. Even though the facts didn't quite add up, it was the witnesses who made the difference. Simon Baker and Elaine Curthers, two chartered accountants who had been driving that same road on December 1st, were among the people who called the police after the TV appeal. Their story was heartbreaking to Tracy's story. That night, they saw Lee Harvey's car on Cooper's Hill. They had seen it do something strange, like going around in a circle and then stopping in a way that matched Tracy's description. Her story has held up so far, but this was the important part. Baker and Curther drove along the same road for miles without seeing another car after passing Lee's stopped car. There was no dark Ford Sierra, no other car following, and no angry driver running away from the scene. Sierra should have been there if Tracy's story was true. The math was impossible to avoid. The road was too narrow, and the time was too perfect for a car to have gotten away without being seen. They didn't see the Sierra because there wasn't a Sierra. It had never been there. It was a ghost that a killer made up. Other witnesses came forward with evidence that was very bad. A child who lived nearby said they heard a fight, but only two voices. If Lee had been confronted by strangers, one would expect to hear multiple male voices. The child said that one voice sounded like a woman's and was soft and high-pitched. There was no more road rage in the story. As witness accounts weakened Tracy's story, physical evidence dealt the last unarguable blow. Investigators carefully looked at the blood patterns on Tracy's clothes. In her story, she said she stayed in the passenger car while Lee was being attacked outside. She hadn't taken part. She had just watched. The blood, though, said something else. Based on the pattern, she was very close to Lee when blood started to pour out of his neck wound. She was standing next to him when the fatal hit was delivered. More tests showed that most of the blood was in the back of the car, which didn't match up with where she said the fight happened. The physical proof put her at the scene of the killing. The hair came next. Near Lee's body, police found between 80 and 100 strands of Tracy's hair that had been pulled out of their roots in what had to have been a violent fight. Lee's fingers were twisted with more hairs. As Lee Harvey's life was running out, he grabbed the person who was killing him. He had fought back, and while doing so, he had pulled Heather Andrews' hair out. He left proof of her guilt even after he died. At the scene of the crime, no murder weapon was found. Why wasn't the knife with the person who stabbed Lee more than 30 times? Detectives found the answer in a place they didn't expect. Inside of Tracy Andrews' boot, they found a mark of blood based on its size and shape. It looked like a Swiss Army knife had been hidden there. After killing Lee, Tracy put the murder weapon in her boot right away. She kept it a secret until help came, while paramedics desperately tried to save a man who was already dead, and police took her initial statements. Later, it was found that she may have thrown away the knife in a hospital trash can while she was getting medical care for her injuries. Lee probably got hurt while he was desperately trying to stay alive. The injuries she used as proof of the attack were ones she said she had seen. There was a lot of proof. No one had been angry on the road. There wasn't a dark Ford Sierra. No man had looked at her with wide eyes. Sue Andrews and Lee Harvey were the only ones on that dark country road. Tracy Andrews passed out at her parents' house as the investigation came to an end. It was thought that she had overdosed, and they took her to the hospital. Tracy Andrews was charged with murder on December 19, 1996. The next day, she went to court to answer for her actions. In a controversial ruling, she was given bail with the requirement that she live with her parents. The government made an appeal, but on December 23rd, a judge refused to change the ruling. Tracy's family would be with her for Christmas. During the first few meetings, prosecutors explained their case. This wasn't road rage. It was murder in the home, the end of a violent relationship. On December 1st, a fight broke out over a black woolly hat that was given as a joke. As the fight got worse, Tracy became so angry that she stabbed the man she was going to marry more than 30 times. Tracy Andrews was put on trial at Birmingham Crown Court in the summer of 1997. David Krigman QC led the prosecution's strong case, which was based on witness statements, physical evidence, and problems with Tracy's story. The evidence was carefully very bad. The witness who drove down the empty road, the blood pattern that showed Tracy was the one who stabbed the person, the hair that was torn out of her head, and the boot stain that showed how she hid the weapon. The prosecutors took apart the road rage story piece by piece. They said Tracy wasn't guilty and that the person who attacked her out of anger over the traffic was real, but there was too much proof to believe them. The jury's decision was that the person was guilty of murder on July 29, 1997. Tracy Andrews was given a life sentence with a minimum of 14 years in jail by Mr. Justice Buckley. Ray and Maureen Harvey sat with their daughter Michelle in the public gallery to watch Lee get justice. Ray Harvey told the press that they thought Lee had been given justice, but justice could not bring their son back. The Harvey family still felt a lot of pain. They had been to a hearing where their son's tense relationship was broken down. His violent death was described in great detail, and the woman who had been holding Maureen's hand at the press conference was found to be his killer. Tracy tried to overturn her sentence in 1998, arguing that unfair press had ruined her trial. The appeal was turned down in October 1998. Her belief stayed strong. Then, in April 1999, something very interesting happened. Through a newspaper, Tracy's letter from jail was made public. She said she had killed Lee Harvey in it. The words in the letter would help prove her case. I forgot how to do it. Tracy Andrews finally told the truth about what happened after years of denying guilt and making up complex stories about people who attacked Lee out of anger over a traffic accident. Lee's family went through a contested trial. The groom-to-be had been killed by a knife on a country lane in Worcestershire. In the end, she said it was self-defense, but police said this wasn't true because the attack happened as Lee was running away from his attacker. It wasn't self-defense. There was a chase and death. Tracy did her time in British prisons, and she finally got to Askham Grange Open Prison in Yorkshire. By 2010, she was free during the day and could go shopping in York as part of her transfer. When the news spread, people were furious. Maureen Harvey never got over the murder of her son or the betrayal by the woman she had supported. She said the situation was upsetting and traumatic. It was said that Tracy had surgery to improve the look of her chin and that she had changed her name to Tia Carter. Tracy Andrews was released from prison in July 2011 after spending about 14 years. She left with a new name and a new look. Lee Harvey stayed buried for 25. He was never given the future that should have been his. Tracy Andrews' case is an important part of British criminal history for many reasons, not just because of how horrible the act was. The case sparked arguments about justice and rehabilitation across the country and changed the lives of everyone who was affected by it. It came out at a time when road rage was a big deal. Tracy's story played on that cultural anxiety by telling a story that seemed to prove people's worst fears about random violence on Britain's roads. The fact that it was made up made the fact that people believed it even scarier. The case showed that media pleas can be harmful in two ways. Tracy's performance on TV was meant to make people feel sorry for her and support her false story. Instead, it led to witnesses who said things that proved her excuse was false. The thing she used to say she was innocent turned out to be the thing that proved her guilt. The case also showed how investigative science can find the truth. There are signs of blood, like hair, and a spot on the boot. These people who didn't say anything told the story Tracy tried to hide. What happened on Cooper's Hill was a real event that could not be changed by fake tears. He died when he was 25 years old. The young man was just like everyone else, but he fell in love with the wrong person. His family has been dealing with the pain of his death for decades, and the lies that were told afterward have made it worse. That man with the wide eyes never existed. He was a lie made up by a woman who had just killed someone. That person who really did it had eyes that stared, eyes that lied to TV cameras. There were eyes that saw Lee Harvey's mother cry and knew the truth. Tracy Andrews was found guilty. It would never be enough for Lee Harvey and his family, though. Some cuts don't get better. Some losses can never be made up for. Betrayal sometimes leaves scars that never go away. And somewhere in Britain, a woman with a new name and face is free, but people still know what she did on a dark country lane in December 1996. Thank you so much for being here today. I truly appreciate the time you take to watch these videos, and it means a lot that you choose to spend a part of your day with this channel. Your presence, whether silent or active in the comments, helps create a space where people can learn, think, and connect. Every view, every like, and every bit of support helps this community grow into something stronger and more meaningful. If you haven't already, feel free to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And if you'd like to be part of the conversation, you're always welcome to share your thoughts in the comments. I read as many as I can, and I value every voice that joins in. Your ideas, your feedback, and even just your presence help shape the direction of future videos. As we wrap up today's video, I just want to say thank you again for your continuous support. Take care of yourself, stay grounded, and give yourself time to rest and breathe. Life moves fast, and it's important to slow down when you can. I hope the rest of your day or night brings you peace, comfort, and something to smile about. Until we meet again in the next video, stay safe, stay kind, and I'll see you soon.